Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be the first episode of Duo Spectate, and my Duo Spectator today is your friend.
LateCustomer, the mid laner of the currently very poorly performing Cola Brigade.
Oh, there you go. Well, hopefully, we'll see some better performances in the future. Our first Spectate today is going to be right on Zeno, our friendly neighborhood Shiba Inu. I think is his icon. Yeah, right? Yeah, that is a Shiba Inu, right?
It looks like it.
Yeah. And we'll be taking a look at his match against Hashinshin's Hecarim top lane. So this is going to be exciting to watch. The general idea of what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at the matchup, at the vision that he has. So we're going to be watching from his perspective. And I'm going to use Epic Pen so that my friend the customer can see what I'm thinking of when I draw lines on my screen. And of course, you all will be able to see that as well. Let's make sure my OBS is recording. Yes, it is. Fantastic. Okay. So let's see.
Now, Zeno's been on a tear before we got to this video, right? Like, he's been performing fairly well.
Indeed.
You were saying something about that, him being on an adrenaline high?
That is correct. So he gave himself a new username. Oh, this is very loud. Hold on. Let me turn the sound way down. He's been on an adrenaline high, a dopamine high, since he changed his name and discovered his his daily or weekly greatest error. I don't know. It's funny to talk about, but it's in some way true. Like everything that he's pointed out about himself is more or less accurate to some degree. Whether it's as important as he says it is another matter entirely. But he is finding weaknesses in his play and is attempting consciously to fix it. And so with that, and as well as the mindset he goes in to fixing it, every time he does so, it gives him an adrenaline and dopamine high for a temporary period. I think by this game it's worn off, so we're going to see something more along the lines of his median skill level and his skill distribution, not his adrenaline high, which would make him perform at the top part of his distribution. So this is going to be a better representation of it. But
And of course, he would be going up against someone that's well known.
indeed, Hajinchen. So there's the celebrity factor here. I remember one of the stories I always tell is my first time playing with anyone huge was Yasuo Mo, the Yasuo one trick streamer, and he had 3,000 viewers at the time. I had played with 100 viewer streamers before, but that was the first time I'd ever been on a 3,000 viewer stream, and I was so nervous, and there was so much adrenaline going through me that I just blacked out. Like I actually just completely couldn't handle it. Yeah, it was pretty funny. That was a fun game, but I assume that he has something similar. He's played against some names before, so I don't think this is going to be as to the same degree that I have. But of course, playing against a Shinshin, he's going to be a bit more nervous, a bit more excited. In this case, this is not the same kind of adrenaline rush that I was talking about before that gives you win streaks. This is more of a temporary fight or flight adrenaline rush. Level 2 gank from the Rex side coming in. E is hit onto the Hecarim. Hecarim has Ignite teleport, so he's just dead. And that's first blood for the Camille there. So there you go.
Oh, well, before that even happened, I was going to ask, since I'm not very familiar with the intricacies of the top lane. So what is Zeno looking for in this lane? What is he trying to do against Hecarim?
Sure. So Hecarim's greatest strength right now is the fact two things. His Q damage now with the most recent buff of the patch, it increases greatly over time as he builds up rampage stacks, and so he's quite the duelist in terms of DPS. His Q cooldown goes down to about like 0.75 seconds or something like that, and outputting auto attacks in between. He's just putting out a lot of DPS over time. Second, his W allows him to sustain through the minion wave. So if he's pressing W, which is that ring around him, he's gaining a lot of HP very quickly, as we're going to see in this game, that you have to counteract as well. So there's basically two things that you can do as the Camille here. You can try and short trade him down, not taking the full DPS of his Q stack mechanic, or you can try and all in him so that he can't sustain thirst W. You kind of see the difficulty here, right? Where it seems like you have to deal with two different, archetypes, but they're completely opposing archetypes. So what do you do? It seems pretty difficult.
I have no idea how I would even handle that, because it sounds like the all in is the better option, because if you give him time to sustain, I mean, any work you put in is just a wash.
Absolutely. So the idea here becomes his sustain is not just the kind of sustain that you think of like Garen passive. His sustain is very much combat oriented, which means it's based off a 15-second cooldown on his W. If he doesn't have that W up, that sustain doesn't exist anymore. And so what I'd be looking to do is forcing the Hecarim to burn that W through short trades to avoid his CPS. And once his W is down in terms of cooldown, then I would look to fully all in the Hecarim. Even though he does do damage, so does Camille. And so without his sustain factoring into that fight, that becomes a very positive situation for the Camille, which I think is the way that you need to play this matchup. One thing that Zeno did mention in the chat after this game is he had never played this matchup before, which is acceptable, considering who plays Hecarim top, right? But, of course, with proper game knowledge, you can theory adapt what I just said and put it into application. So here you go. Zeno going for a bit of a trade. This is a mistake that Camille players actually make a lot of the time. They go for something called like the short-long trade, which I'll show you what I mean by that. So in this situation, he has press the attack, right? And press the attack is 3 different auto attacks put together that creates a small amount of burst damage and then amplified damage. However, it's a very huge quote-unquote noob trap. I don't really like the word, but in this case, it actually makes sense because they'll think of, I want to proc the PTA, and then I want to take a little bit more damage after that to get the amp damage, right? And it seems good. But in this case, when you're going against a Hecarim, of course, he's also about to hit level 2, and so your level advantage is negated. So you're about to see from this minion right here. See, Zeno goes in just a little bit too late as this minion is about to tie to his own minion, giving Hishinshin level 2. If he had gone in any earlier, Hishinshin wouldn't have been able to hit level 2 and make this trade much better. Regardless, so the timing there is, of course, very important, and Zeno failed to recognize that. But in this situation, take a look. So, press the attack is procced right there. At this situation, you either want to full commit and utilize both parts of Camille's Q to the fullest, which means you wait for the true damage. You full commit, keep auto-attacking, and don't let up. Or you proc the press the attack and run away with the movement speed. The short-long trade that I was talking about is when Camille players will take a short trade, do a lot of burst damage, and then try and greed a couple autos after, and running away at the same time instead of taking the short trade, using both parts of their Q prematurely, and then trying to get more. And so actually you'll see what I mean. Take this out. He does exactly what I'm talking about, and he just slowly loses.
Ooh.
And so now what was
taken the money and run.
Exactly. Full HP to 40% has now changed to 40% to 30%. So in the period of time that Hecarim did 60% of his HP, he only managed to do 10 after the Hecarim had already taken his damage. And so that obviously is not a good trade. And so by putting himself in that position where he's doing half of what he should be, half of short trading and half of long trading, or all-ins as you call it, now he puts himself in a much less desirable position. We can put it that way.
So at this point, now that he put himself in this situation, what does Zeno want to do?
Sure. So he has a couple of options here. He has to be cognizant of the fact that Hishinshin has Ignite. And Ignite instantly in the top lane needs to sound your alarm bells as much as possible, because when you don't have Ignite, suddenly their all-in windows compared to yours are much more opportunistic. They can take advantage of mistakes that you make much harder, and that's actually what we're about to see. But in general, he sees that the Hecarim has backed and teleported after the level 2 gank. He sees the Hecarim has burned through 2 of his corrupting pots, and with his W is going to heal up off of this wave after it crashes into turret. And so, looking at the gold values, Zeno has 700 gold. So here, he has a couple of options. He can either back right now and teleport back, get 2 long swords, and just play the lane as normal, knowing that neither champion now has teleport, but he's going to be at full HP, he's going to have the 2 long swords combat advantage. Or he can greed a little bit, try and shove this wave into the turret, and then back, not even need to burn his teleport, and come with an advantage in terms of teleport. And this is actually something I always tell the people in Duo that I hate the word playstyle. Because the word playstyle is often used as dismissal of mistakes. Because the vast majority of players, everyone under Masters, doesn't play the game at an optimal enough level in order to make decisions between different optimal situations. So in a situation, if there's 2 different optimal decisions that you can make, that's what I believe to be playstyle. Your playstyle would dictate which one you take. But most people use it as a optimal play and a suboptimal play, and they say I took the suboptimal play because that's my play style. And I don't think that's a good way to look at it.
No, right, of course not.
Yeah, and that's a big field of theory that we won't go too far into, but this is actually a legitimate application of playstyle. If you're a lane phase player, the moment you made a mistake like this, I would back and teleport, cancel out my mistake, and I would just try and kill the Hecarim over and over again. If you're a team player and you like to use your teleport to influence the map, then I would go for the second play. Try and shove it in, then back, regain, regroup, and then go back to lane with your teleport advantage and play the game that way.
Let's see what Zeno does then.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's good for us to take as much time as we can in the first couple minutes because these are the most important minutes of a game. There's a field of theory I always talk about called the butterfly effect, which is generally used in time travel. But in this case, we can actually use it in terms of League. No events, as you can see in this bar here, none of these events would have ever happened if these 3 minutes were any different. Just the flap of a butterfly's wings changes the course of history. And in League, just the flap of a movement or a CS or a trade changes the entire course of the game. And so we're not going to spend as much time on every second as we are here for the rest of the game, but these are the most important minutes of a game. For sure.
Right. I mean, that's why everyone always tells if you want to get better, to work on the fundamentals, because that's what's going to dictate how your games go. You know,
Exactly.
all the decisions you're making now, I mean, that decides what you're going to do later.
So a bit of a misplay from Zeno here. This is probably this is what I was talking about, right? When you don't respect the Hecarim's ability to not only out DPS you but also to sustain, this happens. You're looking for trades that you're too disrespectful in looking for, and this happens. So he is in here. He gets the auto Q off. So this is the optimal, quote-unquote, optimal short trade pattern, and he mechanically pulls it off well. But now Hashinshin is already starting to use the bushes, a higher-level lane concept, but to try and kite away, which he does. In this case, Zeno lands the second part of his Q, but it's just not enough damage to kill Hashinshin. And this is something that he had to know. He had to know that he doesn't have enough damage to kill Hashinshin, but if he uses his E, the only thing capable of getting him away from Hashinshin, to go in, he's in there. He's committed. He's going to get run down, and he just didn't know that. And that's the way he did it. Instead, the much better way to play this with the wave position as it is to start off with your W. Get the Hecarim slowed. Start to auto-attack trade with him. Bait out his W, and the moment that W goes down, then you can E into him and kill him, and he has no counterplay. By playing suboptimally, Zeno gave Hashinshin counterplay. And one of the things that we and Hyalo talk about a lot is not giving up anything to the enemy. And it feels like when you're playing against a player of that caliber, it feels like you get choked out because you just can't see any opportunities to ever go in and ever do anything. But here, by Zeno not understanding this concept and going in, he gave Hashinshin the window to take advantage of his mistake and kill him. And because Hashinshin, as Zeno mentioned after the game, in lane at least, plays around a Masters or Grandmaster's level, although those two are synonymous at this point, a low Grandmaster level, he's more than capable of taking advantage of this mistake. And so he does.
So now that he's in this position, you know, let's say, for the sake of argument, skills equal. Now that Zeno comes back into the lane, at this point, what happens? Who has the advantage and why?
Sure. So Hecarim's going to take this entire wave unperturbed, and that's really bad for the Camille. Camille doesn't necessarily lose too much. He's going to be a level like a third of the level down maybe after this situation. He decides not to teleport back, which in this case I probably wouldn't either, but that means now that in terms of lane phase, it's equalized. All of the advantages that the level 2 gank got him and his trade subsequently, they're all just kind of gone. Hecarim is going to have to back after a certain point, and I think Zeno actually kills him because the Shinshin is bad and doesn't realize that. So we're about to watch that. Here's the slow on the Hecarim, the auto attack trade, the E here, and of course,
okay.
The kill.
I was gonna say, I mean, he has the item advantage. I figured.
Yep.
I assumed he did have the advantage, but I don't know the top lane.
So Hashinshin needed to back and reset, get himself some items, get himself full HP, get himself 3 corrupting pots, and Hashinshin was just good to go. Sure, he was going to lose a wave or two, but you know he has to. That's just when you don't have teleport and you just solo killed your enemy. That's just what you got to do. If he really wanted to save himself a lot, he could have cleared this wave right here and instantly backed, and that's probably the optimal thing for Shinshin to do after that set of events. But he didn't take that, and so he died to Zeno. Let's talk about this kill mechanically, shall we? I can bring up my pen, and we can do some drawing. All right, this is always the fun part. Oh, okay, so I have to switch to the pen. Control Shift 3. So in this case, he covered his enemy Hecarim's options by Eing forward and flashing backwards. The thing is, though, he wants to let Hashinshin make a mistake. So for Hashinshin here, the correct play is to have your character just run straight down. Because if you go backwards, you die. And so that's... Hashinshin doesn't want to die, so he needs to run straight down and hope that the Camille misses her E. That's the only course of action for the Hecarim to take. If he takes any other course of action, then you can cover it with Camille's Flash, it's true, but you also want to let the Hecarim make a mistake that the vast majority of players in Diamond and Masters make all the time. Challengers don't make this as much, which is, check this Hecarim out. He does exactly what, even players across from Iron, although Iron players generally just, I don't know, they're really hard to track in general, but like from Gold to Masters, almost everyone moves in this pattern. See how he goes backwards? He's trying to dodge the E by moving in an upwards fashion. And so one of the things that you find is in situations like this, you always want to aim it behind them. Now, if you aim it behind him and he starts to run down, then of course you have to redirect with your Flash. But you want to give him the opportunity because otherwise you're going to have to redirect it anyway no matter what, because he can outrun your E. So in this case, you want to be prepared to use your Flash as Camille to kill the Hecarim because he's so fast. But just in case he makes an error, you want to take advantage of that so you don't have to burn your Flash. But the Zeno did not do that, and now he's a Flash down. And that's not too big of a deal. Let's see what Zeno does here. He has a freeze for himself. This is going to kill wave after wave. The low HP caster means is a bit of a problem, but hopefully he RNGs himself. Yeah, it looks like RNG's in his favor. The minions aren't focusing down any minions, so Hecarim is just going to lose a ton of CS here. This is really good for Zeno. It's good that he knows that he shouldn't be pushing the wave. So, that's good from Zeno. This is a little bit preemptive. He wants to keep as many minions on the other side alive as possible so that this pushes into him as fast as possible. So he messed it up just a little bit, but he's going to cause the Hecarim to lose a lot anyway, regardless. So now, he just killed the Hecarim, right? And now that means he's sitting on 800 gold. And so he could go back and spend that 800 gold and be way, way stronger than a Hecarim. So in this situation, the moment this Hecarim shows up, I want to shove this wave as fast as possible so I can cash in, right? Because that 800 gold for me does absolutely jack all sitting in my wallet, right? Like, League isn't like real life where you should save up. Like, that's not something you want to be doing in League because gold sitting in your pocket does jack all for you. And so let's see what Zeno does here. Now, he's not really shoving the wave. He's not really pressuring Hashinshin at all. And this is a huge error. He's losing so much here. Hecarim is just chilling. Look at his items. Like, he has 900 gold worth of items. Even after the kill, 450, 900, 1200, right? He's still up in items, in terms of combat items. And he can still bully the Hecarim here and use it to manipulate the wave as he wants, but he's just failing to do so. And in this situation, it's already too late. Hecarim has gotten the wave prio for himself. He has his Q stacked up. You no longer can really bully him off of it. And so in this case, what I would do is, understanding that I want to play for lane phase, because I fucked up, I no longer have the luxury of saving my teleport to pressure both my lane opponent and my team. I'm going to back right here and teleport back to lane and then try and correct this problem. Because you can notice how Shinshin feels like he's in control of this lane right now. But he shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine Zeno just, like you said, he doesn't know the matchup, so he's probably a little gun-shy from taking so much damage earlier when, as you're pointing out, he could still win the short-long trades, but I guess he just doesn't know that?
Yeah, probably. And this is why, like, matchup information, in top lane specifically, is most important out of all of the lanes here. So he's going to take a trade. He's going to do a lot of damage. Proc suppress the attack. See, now Hecarim presses the W. And see, the W's on an 18-second cooldown. So the moment this Hecarim steps up, right, he's He's just boned. And this was actually something that I watched earlier when I was watching a Shinshin stream, but Zeno lets him back. And that is so, so bad. Because now Hecarim pushed in the wave. He got his 3 corrupting pot stacks back. He got another period of breathing room. And it's just all over. Like, Hecarim now is completely comfortable. He has Ninja Tab completed. Zeno doesn't even push this wave. Does he? Please tell me he pushes this wave. Because otherwise he's going to have to burn his teleport. Oh, no. Yeah. So that was an opportunity for him to push in the wave all the way to turret, then back, and still save his teleport without losing too much. But in this instance...
All right, so we have a new situation now. So in this situation, Zeno is looking to do what? What would be his strategy now?
Sure. So he's kind of screwed himself, by the way. So it's true that he's up against the Hecarim, right? He's 2-1, he's 43 CS to 30, he's 13 CS up, he's a kill up. He's doing well. The problem is he went Sheen, which is a basic attack amplifier, and does physical damage. And the enemy went Ninja Tabi. And so this item not only is completely negated by the Ninja Tabi, it's negated like a time over. Like it's 1.5 times negated. And so now his combat advantage is down just to like his Doran's blades. And while they're good and all, Hecarim is starting to get to the point where he doesn't care about Camille's lane bully anymore. Because he can just
was there a better purchase?
I probably would have gone Tiamat right here, so I could control the waves in a better fashion. Or you could go for Phage if he had enough gold for it, or build towards it to give you some movement speed to deal with the Hecarim. But Sheen is definitely not it. Yeah, Sheen is definitely not it. Because you would figure that the Hecarim is going to rush Ninja Tabi. That's what he likes to do in the top lane, because it gives him attack damage. Movement speed gives the Hecarim attack damage, and he just likes movement speed in general. And so, one thing that you might find interesting, Lost, is that like he seems like he's doing pretty well, right? 50 CS, 2
on paper, yeah.
But he's made at least like half a dozen major mistakes in the first 7 minutes. That's almost a major mistake per minute. Yeah, and it seems like he's doing really well. And this is why in high elo, like it's true, Shinshin can play lane phase on his good days at a low grandmaster's level, but any grandmaster challenger player worth his salt would have already been like 4-0 by now. And that's the big difference. And the worst thing about it is the fact that you actually can't see it if you don't have the game knowledge to do so. Like if I were to have to bet money, I would on any player in Duo looking at this, and they would only spot maybe 2 or 3 mistakes, and only the obvious ones. And that's a big problem. Because how do you improve if you can't see the mistakes you're making?
Okay, so at this point, is Zeno trying to just keep the Hecarim in the lane, prevent him from roaming? Is he trying to go for the tower? This is what I don't understand. I'm trying to figure out what it is that he needs to be doing to help his team.
So just as Zeno doesn't know this matchup, neither do I, because I've never played Camille and Hecarim. Everything that I've talked about so far is theory crafted just off of sheer game knowledge. However, when I'm in a situation like this, I need to figure out what I win and what I do not win. Right? I need to figure it out. If sure, I might make a huge error and lose this game for it, but at least I'll know for the next time, right? So in this game, I'd be like,
that's my question. What's his win condition?
Right, so as Camille de Hecarim, I know that I win the early game, just as we saw Zeno was clapping him. Made a few errors that made him die, but he was winning. At this point, I'm actually kind of curious. I would be like, hey, I'm playing Camille. I have Sheen. I have double Dorans. I have a longsword. The guys have Ninja Tab. I want to see if I win a short trade. So what I would do is I would W the guy. I would E into him as he's slowed, so he couldn't dodge it with his own E. And then I would auto Q, and then Q again to get the press the attack off and run away. And I would say, hey, do I win that? And if he runs me down with his E, understanding that I short traded and didn't extend too long, he can't kill me, I know that. And so I want to see if he can run me down and do more damage than I just did to him. Or does he sustain through it? And so at this point, I'm actually going to use the game as a theory crafting platform to test the matchup. Like, I want to know, you can't figure out how the matchup goes without doing that. And so, that's what I would be doing. And then I'd be like, okay, well, what if I all in the guy? What if I E into him right away, auto Q, auto W slow him, and then get my true damage Q? Do I win that? And I'm going to do it near my turret so I don't die, just in case I don't, right?
Right.
But I think Zeno is just too scared at this point, so he just doesn't do, much at all. Now, he's going to get ganked by his Rek'Sai, so this Hecarim is going to die. So that's always fun.
Oh.
Oh my, actually. Wait, Shinshin just beat his ass. Right? So this is a really commonly made mistake by Camille players. This trading combo is a short trade combo. It doesn't work in anything prolonged. And in a gank situation, you are in a prolonged fight, right? Like, it's going to be a prolonged fight, whether you like it or not. And now, most of the time, when you have a jungler, it doesn't matter that it's a prolonged fight. You should have enough damage to take him down anyway. Hecarim, on the other hand, built Ninja Tabi. And Ninja Tabi nullifies the damage from both Camille and Rek'Sai. And he has his W healing, and he has Corrupting Pot, and he has a Biscuit, and he has Time Warp. It's a little difficult to kill him. And so in this case, this is a huge error from Zeno that he might look at and go, I did this correctly, I just didn't have enough damage. Well, no, you didn't have both parts of your Q, you didn't use press the attack, and you short-traded a all-in situation. And so this is what happens. So now, in this case, Zeno auto-queued him, and instead of kiting away from the Hecarim, he kited into him because he assumed that the Hecarim couldn't kill him. Unfortunately for him, Hecarim got a Q buff. Now, I don't think in this case it would have mattered. I think Hecarim is just too fast with his level 2 boots, but small error that might matter in the future, just not in this case. Anyway, at this point, this matchup's over. It's too late. This mess up right here, whether Rek'Sai kills him or not, Zeno has lost. Hecarim is just too far ahead. Because in a matchup that you lose really hard in the early game, you should assume that if you're playing a half-decent champion, you're going to win later on. Right? Because, Riot's balance is like that. Riot doesn't try and make champions that are shit at all points of the game. That's kind of unfortunate. And so, if you lose really hard early, you assume that you win later, and this is what we're seeing happen. I'm actually kind of curious. Okay, Rek'Sai does have ultimate, so... Oh, very close, actually. He almost died. Wow. That was just one
boy,
Q.
that would have been totally demoralizing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, demoralizing or not.
It already is.
Yeah, demoralizing or not, this game is... one thing that's true is that this kind of thing doesn't lose you the game, right? Like, red team is still 2.4k ahead. True, the enemy has an Infernal, but like this game is by no means over, right? Bot lane just killed like 3 people. The problem with this, and when I talk to students and I say, hey, you just lost the game, they're like, no, I didn't. Like, this game's still winnable. I'm like, sure, the game is winnable, but you just lost the game. And when I say that, it's because that means that you have lost your ability to control the game.
Yeah.
Like, whether you win or lose in this game is no longer up to you. It's just up to luck. If you play perfectly, you can't guarantee that you win at this point in the game. It's too late. And that's something that people just don't really understand. They're like, no, I can play well after this. I can come back. And I say, if you come back, it's either because the enemy team throws into you or your teammates carry you long enough for you to be able to come back. But those two things you can't control. So if your enemy team plays well and your team plays poorly, you've lost. And there's nothing you can do about it, even if you play perfectly from this point on. And that's what happened to Zeno right here. He's lost. This game is now out of his control. Let's play the game normally from now on, but that concept is a very important one. Is when you make enough errors and your enemy laner, whether they're Iron or Challenger, if they find enough errors that you've made and take advantage of them, there's like a counter that you have allowance for. In Challenger, if you're playing against Challenger players, usually 1 or 2 errors you're allowed. If you haven't lost the game completely. After
all right, so correct me if I'm wrong here. So at this point, I'm in Zeno's shoes. I can't even fathom what he's thinking, but I'd be thinking, all right, assuming I know everything you just said, that I can't win my lane anymore. It's no longer within my control. What's my win condition? Focus on trying to see if Kai'Sa can carry the game because she has, a farm lead and the kill, or
absolutely. So when I say you've lost control of the game, doesn't mean that. That's not what I mean by when I say that. I don't mean you can't kill your lane opponent anymore. Like, a Shinji can run under your turret and tower dive you. You killed him.
Right, of course.
Right. So what you want to be doing...
But he has to be the one making those mistakes.
Exactly. So what you want to be doing is making sure that you don't make any more mistakes. You try and limit yourself from making your team...
bleeding.
Exactly. Staunch the bleeding. But at the same time, keep looking out for enemy mistakes, just in case they throw it back to you. And when I say it like that, it sounds like you play the game just like you always do from minute 1. And that's actually the case. Whether you've lost control of the game or not, you actually don't change how you play at all. You should be playing the same way all game, every game. You should never change. Because you should be playing the optimal at any given point. And just because you're behind doesn't change what the optimal is, because the optimal is not a linear equation. It's a formula that includes variables, and many variables. And if you're actually trying to calculate the optimal utilizing those variables based on the situation at hand, the optimal changes, but in a very predictable format because it is an algorithm. And so in this case, it's the exact same. You're playing the game just as you always intended it to be, right? And that's just how it is. Now, one thing that's true is when you've lost control over being able to carry the game, you want to place your teammates that are still in control of the game above yourself. That is true. So in a way, it does change, but you're just messing with the data so that the algorithm spits something else out. In this case, I would never even go to lane. I would just go straight to my teammates to help them out. And let's see. He gets his E canceled by the Hecarim ult. Echo dies as a result. And you see his seconds of farming top lane there costed his Echo his life. And considering his Echo might have actually been the person to carry this game, that could be game losing. And indeed, that's how this is. So when you are falling behind in the game and you understand that you no longer control it, it is true that you want to be more cognizant of your teammates' ability to carry than your own. Before that point, you want to be focusing on your own ability to carry. But once you've lost it, it's really hard to get it back. It's possible to get back. It's not like a point of no return.
Right.
I say it like it is because the vast majority of the time it is. Like when I say vast majority, I mean vast majority, like 90% of the time it is. But 10% of the time, for whatever reason, your teammates give you something and you get funneled a little bit of gold, and or your enemies throw into you, you can actually get pushed back over the edge and say, hey, I have control over this game again. That's pretty cool. And at that point on, then you can resume playing for yourself. But when you've passed over the point of no return, although we should now call it a little bit of return, then you do want to be more cognizant of your teammates' ability to carry. Ooh, nice dodge for the Kai'Sa. Actually, this Rakan is just in trouble here. Bam! So at this point, I want to make sure that the Hecarim, I don't want to necessarily abandon my lane. I've done that before, and it's a different field of theory. We won't talk about that here. But you want to be trying to stop this Hecarim from getting any bigger, because as the top laner, it is your duty. He is the enemy top laner. At the same time, I would also notice, hey, my Kai'Sa is 3-1. I want to be helping her in any way I can. I want to be there for her every time she's in danger, if possible. And so that's what I would do. And in this case, that's all you really can do. All right, so no more pausing. Let's play the rest of the game at 4 times speed, and we'll wrap it up because, like I said, the early game should always take the vast majority of a VOD review because it is the most important. The only time that it shouldn't is when you don't make this many mistakes in the early game. And that only really happens with Master Challenger players, and even then it's mostly Challenger. Yep. So, spot lane's still big. Yeah. Yeah, and this absolutely cannot happen. So let's go ahead and watch that again. You do not want to be doing this after you've passed that point. So let's see what mistakes he made, shall we? Okay, so at this point, this wave is going to slow push towards the enemy. That should be something that you're kind of happy with. His E gets canceled here. One thing that Hashinshin's been doing over and over again is trying to cancel his E with his own E. And so at that point, you don't want to be making the same mistakes over and over again. So I'd be like, okay, Hecarim's coming at me really fast. How can I get out of the situation with my, limbs intact? And so what I would probably do is either E into him to cancel his own E, or I would save my E until after I get hit by his E. Those are the two options. He picked the one in the middle and got himself canceled, and that's no good. So now, this is really good. You see how he walks back in?
Yeah.
That is, he tries to get the passive shield, but what that also does is allows Hecarim to move forward. And at this point, the moment I get ignited, I know that the Hecarim is going to try and ultimate me. And so that tells me what he's going to do. He's trying to all-in me. And so at this case, I'm not expecting Zeno to be able to do this, but the best Camille players in North America would instantly try and ultimate the Hecarim ult. But he fails. And at this point, he's just in a lot of trouble.
I mean, at that point, can he just leave the tower and
oh, he can just run.
If he just kept walking, he'd be fine.
He'd be out, right. He's being arrogant here and thinking that he can outplay Shinshin. But he cannot. Yep, and Shinshin wins that outplay, and it's just get worse. It just gets worse from here. Yep. One thing that's true is I probably wouldn't have ulted the Hecarim. I would have just flashed away, because that ultimate doesn't really do much for you. At that point, once you fail to ult it, it just doesn't help you that much. It does disjoint an auto attack, so maybe that saves you, but what he could have done maybe there is use his ultimate to outplay. It's just a difficult situation, you know. At this point, it's just kind of doomed. There's so many lines where the Hecarim wins, and so little lines where you win. And of course, you can talk about the optimal line and say, "Hey, you win if you do this," but it gets more and more difficult as it gets to that point. Remember, I said for him to win that he had to ultimate the Hecarim out of his own ultimate. Like when you need that much mechanics to win a fight, you're probably not taking a good fight. Yeah, like I was talking to a guy who was admittedly a challenger player, and he said, just flash the Malphite ult point blank and you win that. And I'm like, but why? Why would you take that fight if you have to do such a thing that's so mechanically difficult to do, just to win it? And every other situation you lose that. That just seems very bad. Also, notice that the Hecarim is full HP again. Now, he did back and run back, but because he's Hecarim, he just runs so fast.
Yeah,
he got canceled again.
I always tell people what little I can teach anyone who, whenever a new friend of mine wants to play this, I always tell them that don't rely on your mechanics. I don't care how twitchy you are. I don't care how precise you are. If you have to rely on mechanics to win, then you are not
taking good fights. Yeah,
exactly. Far,
yeah, and that's a big idea. Like when I say that, I don't want to tell people, listeners, that mechanics don't matter. In fact,
they're great, especially when you're in a bad situation.
Exactly.
It's just,
they can that's what makes a clutch player.
Mechanics isn't what failed you.
Exactly. Absolutely, does a good player need mechanics? Yes. To be an absolutely talented good player in Challenger, you need to have fantastic mechanics so that you can clutch out situations that you're not supposed to win. Because even though you might be playing as best as you possibly can, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to be in positions that are not necessarily the most optimal, but with mechanics that can allow you to win them. And if you have too bad of mechanics, you can't even win the situations that you're supposed to win, right? And so that's not good either. So mechanics are still very important, but as we saw here, if you're in a fight,
thankfully Riot was kind enough to put in champions that don't require too many mechanics.
Don't require too many mechanics, right? Imagine if every champion was like Lee Sin or Zed or.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Boom. Yeah. At this point, the enemy is 4K gold up. They have an Infernal Dragon. Camille's unfortunately dead again, and it's just too much. And one of the biggest things that's true about Hecarim right now is Hecarim top, just like Olaf top, they're very niche, and in different ways. Hecarim top is very niche because he has one of the weakest early levels in top lane, and Olaf has one of the weakest later levels in top lane. And so if you survive Olaf's early game, you're basically good to go. If you kill Hecarim early game, you're basically good to go. And against Hecarim, he failed to do that, and now that Hecarim has so much gold that how do you deal with this Hecarim? He's going to get Sterak's Gauge. Who on your team can actually kill this guy before he kills you? The answer is no one. And unfortunately for them, they don't have any decent peel. They have Rek'Sai knockup and Camille E, but generally those things should be used on the enemies, right? Not on the guy in front of you. And so if you use all of those things on the Hecarim just to get him off of you, not even kill him through the Sterak's, his team is going to kill you. And so at this point, just in terms of composition, there's no real good way to deal with this Hecarim. It's just if they had a Vayne or something, that makes it easier because she can condemn him herself and she can have enough damage to deal with that HP stacking. But they don't. They have a Kaisa. It's just a bad situation to be in. And so at this point, they're just playing the game, and Zeno can do the best he can to hope that he wins. But it's just a coin flip now. This game is just
at this point,
it's a weighted coin flip too.
His team doesn't really have much of an answer at the moment, as you were saying, right? This is now they have to wait and hope that the enemy makes mistakes, or can still kind of steer the boat, as it were.
going to E the Sandra, gets himself a kill, so that's decent there. He gets himself some more gold. It's not enough to push him back over the edge. To do so, you need to have a positive KD. You need to start hitting a CS level that's not 80 at 17 minutes. And that's why I say it's like 10% of the time. It's very, very rare that you get yourself back over the level where you can control a game after losing it. And we're seeing that here. Like, he's finding some kills, but it's just not enough. It's he needs to be not dying as well. It's too much time spent off the map. He's level 10 to the Hecarim's level 12. Hecarim almost one-shot the Rek'Sai. He did one-shot the Rek'Sai. Yeah. And this is the Hshin-Shin special. Hshin-Shin oftentimes gets fed and just ints into the enemy team over and over again. And so I actually played a game against Hshin-Shin. He was duoed with a guy named Master Fiend, who's a low challenger player. And I was playing Silas mid against them. And Hshin-Shin got a massive lead on my top laner because Master Fiend camped my top laner very hard. And Hshin-Shin was like 6-0. And we were all like, oh boy. He was playing Olaf. We were like, we've lost. Like, it's over. But the thing is, Hshin-Shin just gave us like 2 or 3 kills, just like he did here, and we were back in it. However, I was very fed on Silas, so I directly controlled the pace of the game through my actions. He's playing the enemy top laner, so he has 0 control over that. If I were playing the Kai'Sa in this situation, I'd be like, okay, I have some control over this. I can maybe win this, but this Kai'Sa is just another diamond player. Like, he's, not necessarily any better than anyone else, and so that makes this game particularly difficult. And it's interesting because people talk a lot about compositions and talk a lot about, game states, but one thing that you have to factor in, even though it's really hard to do and people never talk about, is like player skill, right? Like, there's a reason why if you have a Smurf on your team, you have a much higher chance of winning before the game even starts. That's what Smurfing means. That's what, skill level means. That Smurf could still be 0-3, and he's still going to be performing at a level equivalent to his teammates. At a certain point, he's going to be lower, but, it's just how it works.
All right, so Zeno's team here, what are they looking for now? Like, how do they slow down all the bloodletting here?
Okay, cool. So they know that they're playing against a Hshin-Shin, right? And unlike most players, a Hshin-Shin has a very well-known player profile. He literally runs at the enemy, tries and fights multiple people, and so what I'd be doing is I'd be just trying to kill the Hecarim over and over again. In this case, they didn't do it very coordinated, and so they weren't able to get him before he ulted out to his team. But Hshin-Shin loves to fight, so you can make this guy die over and over again. Maybe you have a chance getting back in this because that's how Hshin-Shin's MO. On the other hand, Hshin-Shin also has 0 macro. He doesn't really know when his team is going to get engaged on. He just kind of flames his team when it happens. So you actually have the opposite idea as a possibility as well. You leave Hshin-Shin in a side lane. He's playing Hecarim, for God's sake. What is he going to do? Take your inhibitor? Right? And so he's not going to be pushing turrets that fast. And they don't have mountains, so you're not too worried. So on the other hand, you could hard engage onto his teammates as Hecarim is positioned somewhere else. And Hshin-Shin is just going to be very late on that teleport. He's just not that very, not very good at that idea. And so that's probably the other option that I'd consider. The problem with that, and the problem with looking at a game like this in that manner, also, Hshin-Shin just outplayed the Rek'Sai and killed him. Let's go watch that. From full HP. The problem with that is this is solo queue. And not only is this solo queue, this is diamond solo queue, where it's even probably more dysfunctional than like gold, where everyone wants to do something different. And they don't care that there's other ideas. And so in this case, it's like playing roulette. Like you're trying to hope for that one time that the ball lands in the pocket that you're looking for. And that's just the negative aspect of it.
All right. Well, since you brought it up, let's talk about a little bit of fuzzy feelings here. So since you've been through some of the ranks, where would you say, just never mind the player skill, never mind, what people can and can't do, where would you say that the people are most disorganized and
most disorganized
in the sense of like, so I've been told by people who are in diamond that the best time that they had was in gold.
Yes, gold is well known as like the best elo. Yes.
Okay. And because they were telling me that if you think that like silver, like bronze is toxic, wait until you get into plat. And I'm like, well, I have nothing to base that on other than your word. So I was just wondering how true that is.
Gold is well known as like the best elo to play in relatively, because the players are at a decent enough skill level where it looks like League of Legends and it doesn't look like Pummel Party. But it's also the point where players aren't, that platinum, like top 10% ego kind of thing. So they still have some idea of like teamwork built into their play. They're just playing the game for fun at that point, and they just happen to be good at the game compared to like the other people that play for fun, and that's why it's the best elo. It's because everyone's having fun and they're trying to have a good time, and they're also playing the game, and so it's just like, well, gold is pretty cool. In terms of like the second best, it would probably be Challenger. For the other reason, which is just you're just playing at a really high level, so games are just naturally pretty entertaining, and you have that thrill of playing League of Legends at its correct like intended state. But all the other elos have their problems. And
Right.
not to say that Gold and Challenger don't, but those are probably the
No,
best.
of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's Challenger games. I'm not talking about the Challenger matches that they queue up, have a 15-minute queue timer, then queue into a low Masters game. That is the worst. that is not good. Yeah, it's actually happened. I've been in the other side of that. I've been the Masters player with some challengers in the game, and I've seen their ire. It is fantastic. Yeah.
I just have a hard time putting myself in the shoes of someone who just rages nonstop at their enemy team because
At the enemy team.
no, at their own team. Sorry,
At their own team. I actually have seen very few people that rage at the enemy team. I actually most of the time see that in low elo. In like bronze and silver especially, people love all chat. I don't know why. As you go higher and higher, all chat gets used less and less. And actually, it's funny because there's a bump in all chat around the Masters level where people have friends and stuff on the enemy team, like well-known players or just friend groups. And then you actually have people all chatting and bantering. Also, Rek'Sai's fucking... Oh, Compressor? Yikers.
Well, my understanding, what little understanding I have of how people function, is when you're down in like iron and bronze, you have a lot of players who, from what I can see, could probably make it to silver or even gold as they are if they could just get their emotions in check.
Oh, but, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But they can't. So
remember that the staircase
LChat is used.
Is a lot. Yeah, they flame the enemy team.
Yeah.
It's funny as hell to me because I just never see it. Yeah, it's fantastic. But remember that the ranked ladder is not like a even staircase. It's
of course not.
Yeah, it's a ladder with rungs that are not equidistant. They are very much like a growing differential. Also, there comes the engage. Yeah, engaging onto the Kindred from behind is the best way to lose, as you can see. So Zeno there is a little bit trolling. Yeah, when you are ahead of the Kindred, engaging into the Kindred can be one of the best things you can do, because it forces her to ultimate, which drags her team into the fight, and you just kill them all because you're ahead. But from behind, if you engage on the Kindred, it drags your team into the ultimate, and then you get wiped afterwards. So, yeah, you don't want to do that. But as I was saying, yeah, each division difference is higher than the next. So silver 2 to silver 1 is a bigger difference than silver 3 to silver 2. And so, of course, as you said, there are many bronze players that are that could be in silver just because the gap between bronze and silver is actually not that big. Which is why you'll have silver players like struggling to climb out of bronze, because their skill difference is not that not as big as I think it is. On the other hand, you have players. Zeno just RQ? I think you did. What great way to end this video. Zeno RQing. But as I was saying, the gap between like D1 and D2 is massive, and then the gap between Challenger 400 and Challenger 300 is even bigger, so it just gets bigger and bigger. But man, Zeno just RQ'd. That is...
I don't know. Zeno, I don't know you very well. I like to think that you're better than this.
I mean, at this point, I wouldn't blame him for RQing. I'd probably...
Yeah,
I wouldn't RQ. I would just probably go get something to eat. I would just, leave my character in the fountain. Because this game is unwinnable at this point. But
Be right back making a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. By the time you come back, it's, defeat. But, yeah, at this point, someone is probably hostaging them in surrender votes, so I don't blame them. Because this game is not winnable. The enemy team could int into them, all 5 of them, 5 for 0, twice, and they'd still be ahead. Yeah. They could get 5-0 back-to-back team fights and still be ahead. Yeah, that's not a good place to be in.
Yeah, I in my extended collection of people that I play with, there's some people there that they just insist on playing out a game. And it's not even ranked. It's just, hey, dude, we're just doing a normal, and this is just totally lopsided. We can't. winning is no longer in our control. Why are we
Still in this
wasting
game.
our time? Yeah.
Why are we still in this game? Yeah, that's true. NA is well known for not surrendering, by the way. All the other regions surrender much faster than we do. Korea is known for the most. They actually open at like 6 minutes in. That's why the NA Open versus KR Open is a thing, because KR High Elo is well known for they get if they invade or they get invaded and they lose 3 or 4 people, they actually just open. They just go next. It's funny as hell.
Let's save everyone the time and energy, and let's just move on.
That one is an extreme example that I used because it's not necessarily true that the game is lost right there. But I think they take it too far. But that's always the case when you have extremes like that. Yeah. Anyway, this game is literally
there it is.
And that's the end of the discussion. Any questions that you feel that the audience should have answered before we end, or that's the end of the first episode of Duo Spectate?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I was asking the questions as we went along, and you answered each one very well. Thank you for that, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for coming. And of course, we discussed this already, but it provides a much better insight than I can for the intended demographic. So here we are. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone there at home in Duo Esports. This is intended for the Duo Esports community, of course. And thank you, Zeno, for being our subject. It's unfortunate that you lost to Shinshin, but as you mentioned, he is a better player, at least for now. You might pass him in the near future. All right. Stay tuned for the next episode. It's probably going to be the owner of Duo Esports, Dota, and that's going to be exciting. And we'll see you then. Peace.